evening. Welcome to another edition of What Do You Think, Utah? I'm your host, Bill Allred. Thanks for coming tonight, everyone. Tonight we're going to present a discussion, a debate, if you will. It looks like with three mayoral candidates. We did invite George Chapman and Dave Robinson. Both of them said they'd be here. I don't know. Have they thrown in the towel at this point? I don't know. If George and Dave get here within the next few minutes, I think we'll try to sneak them in. And Dylan, did you want to start this timer? Sure. Yeah, please do that for me, will you? But let me introduce the guests who did come this evening. We have on the far left, to my far left here, Councilman Luke Garrott, Salt Lake City Councilman Luke Garrott. Awesome. Dylan, Dave Robinson has just sneaked in. If you want to mic him up. Thanks, Dave. That's okay.
George is out there.
George is out there looking for a place to park. And he's going to come in. You watch. He'll come in and start bitching about the parking. That's what'll happen.
That'd be a first.
We also have with us this evening former state legislator Jackie Biskupski.
Thank you. Thank you.
You all know Salt Lake City Mayor Ralph Becker. Dave Robinson, who just made it in, we'll get him mic'd up, and then George Chapman will be here in just a couple minutes. Thanks for coming, all of you. Now, I'm going to give you a brief overview of tonight's show. This is kind of a different style of debate. We have to be done in 1 hour. So we're going to do this fast, and we're going to make it entertaining, I hope. You are an important part of this program. It's being live streamed tonight, by the way, and also it'll be available tomorrow at thinkutah.org, and you can you should be able to see a video podcast and download an audio podcast of the show. So here's how we'll go. I'm going to ask only 3 questions tonight. 2 questions will be on general topics, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for response to those general topic questions. And then for 1 question, we're going to talk with Mayor Becker. He'll have 2 minutes to talk about his proudest achievements as mayor of Salt Lake City. And then the other 4 candidates, assuming George gets in here after parking his car, will have 90 seconds to respond to the mayor about what he thinks his most important accomplishments are. Okay. And when they've finished, the mayor will have another 90 seconds to address anything they brought up. That should leave us about 20 minutes for audience questions. And it's very important that you participate. So be thinking of your questions. We're going to ask you to come up here and be a part of this video podcast and ask your questions at this microphone. The questions that you ask, we're not going to vet your questions. We would ask you to be respectful and get to the point. And if a question is for one candidate, for instance, if you have a specific question for Mayor Becker or for Jackie or for Luke, that candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. If the question is for the whole group, if you say, I want to ask each one of you a certain question, each candidate will have around 30 seconds to respond to the general question that you're asking of the entire group. All right, those are the ground rules. Let's begin. Start thinking of your questions. We really need them this evening. All right, let's start with Mayor Becker, and we'll do that question first. Mayor Becker, nice to have you here.
Good to be with you, Bill. Thank you.
You know, Mayor Becker's first name, of course, is Ralph. It's real. My first name really is Ralph. I don't know.
Well, there we go.
If you know that, it's
and
Ralph.
You chose Bill over that.
It's Ralph William Allred, and I didn't want to grow up with the name Ralph. So, Mayor Becker, what are your proudest achievements as mayor of Salt Lake City? What have you accomplished that you're most proud of?
Well, Salt Lake City has certainly been on a roll, but I think if I were going to pick 3 items, which I think is what you were looking to, I would point first to providing and assuring equal protection under the law for housing and employment for our LGBTQ community. Starting from the time when I ran for office, I started working on this issue as part of a human rights agenda. And after I came into office, the very first initiative that I launched was a domestic partnership registry. I was told we wouldn't get it done. We got it done. We withstood a fight back from the legislature. We next took up the non-discrimination ordinance. And we were again told we would never get that passed by our city council. Not only did we get it passed, we got it passed by working with the entire community, passed unanimously, and supported across the board in the community. The legislature again launched an effort to stop us from being able to have and implement that ordinance. We worked very hard in the legislature and were able to hold back again an effort to stop the city from implementing something that really reflects our values and policies. That paved the way to this year having a statewide non-discrimination ordinance that was passed after the city's original ordinance.
Got 10 seconds.
I've got 10 seconds left? Well, I better stop there. Our downtown, the bustling revitalization of downtown has certainly been an incredible success
I
as well.
apologize, Mayor. You have 30 seconds left. I said you had 2 minutes.
So downtown is been transformed really from a boarded up downtown to now an increasingly vital, and all of us downtown realize that. The third item is around sustainability, and that's both completely changing our energy portfolio in the city, working with the community around renewable, clean energy, cheaper power, and with our buildings in having, for example, the first net zero public safety building and largest net zero public safety building in the country. And then the work we've done collaboratively with the whole community, environmental community, ski resorts, every local government, state government, and federal agencies to come up with a protection for our mountains called Mountain Accord. We have a ways to go to get that implemented, but every entity signed on to that incredible collaborative effort.
That's time.
Thank you.
All right, you've heard what the mayor has to say. We'd be interested in your responses. Let's just begin right to the left. Jackie Biskupski.
Thank you. Certainly our city has taken several steps in the right direction, there's no doubt, and those steps will continue. I do want to raise some concern. During my time on Capitol Hill, there was a lot of work that was done that allowed for the mayor to pursue the goals he had his first year in office. However, when I was doing the battle on Capitol Hill on behalf of the LGBT community, there was never a time when Mayor Becker stood up on the floor and helped me. There were several other legislators I worked with, but he was not one of them. And so we have to be mindful of what we claim fame for. There was a lot of work done by people in this community long before Becker came into office. And that work was extremely meaningful in where we are today and where we will continue to go in this city. I will also draw some concern around Mountain Accord. People need to be aware that the mayor is pushing for a train to be run up our canyons and to drill a hole in the mountain. We have serious concerns about that hole that is being pursued because there are tailings in the mountain that could be released into the watershed and create real concern for us with the water protection that we have pursued for so long.
Thank you. Luke Garrett.
I want to touch first on the mayor's comments about air quality. We have not done enough on air quality in this city at all. He mentioned getting city buildings in much more economically and environmentally friendly shape, but it's not enough. We have a whole city. We have a whole city that currently is running on Rocky Mountain Power, that doesn't have energy choice, that doesn't have energy security. I have a plan to put solar on every roof in 10 years in this city. The mayor is content with our current very slow, incremental, and really ineffective process in trying to get energy independence. We need to get really serious, and solar power is the way to do that. Secondly, our downtown is still ailing. We have way too many empty lots. We're right across the street from the old Zephyr Club. We have so many empty lots, vacant buildings. I have a plan to get rid of those. I've been tough on the city council on absentee landlords. I'm going to get tougher, and we're going to turn absentee landlords into our partners by offering them a fair market price for their land, and we're going to turn it into public hands. Secondly, I want to talk a little bit about Mountain Accord, but you know what, Dave? I'm going to leave Mountain Accord to you.
Okay. You got about 10 seconds, Luke.
And our downtown needs transit at night. We really have a problem. We've got a problem with accessibility. And the mayor seems very much okay with UTA as the way it is. He compliments them all the time. We need more public transportation.
All right, Mr. Robinson.
I have been really concerned when the mayor talks of the economic growth and affordable housing. I, of course, am a builder in the downtown area, and I was the first one and the only one so far that's done the accessory dwelling unit. And we're 3 years after that or into that ordinance, and we have seen time and time again the ordinance simply does not work. They talk of having an accessory dwelling unit over a garage, but a height restriction on a garage of 9 feet, with the ordinance not overriding that. You cannot have a garage plus living space within 9 feet. You now have the parking ordinance that basically shoves the parking for new development onto the existing neighbors. And the mayor says, well, I'm glad we're now having this public discussion. Well, for those developers that came in under that ordinance, you could go broke by the time the mayor figures out his ordinances and he touts to be a planner. As far as Mountain Accord, there are some enormous concerns. Mayor Becker was one of the people initiating Mountain Accord. They went to the state and asked for millions of dollars. The state gave them $2.8 million. The city owns 26,000 acres of open space in those canyons. The city does not have conservation easements over those properties held by third parties that would prevent development. And the mayor says, trust me. Well, I have a little bit of concern with that because he is the one touting, as Jackie said, a 2-mile tunnel through the mountain. He is also touting some of the most extreme development in the canyons. I do not trust him on these issues.
And Mr. Chapman, thanks for joining us. You had a little trouble finding a place to park?
No, it's the parking, the blue parking meter.
I did. All right, George, have at it. You got 90 seconds.
Okay, this administration is trying to build 3 new rail lines downtown instead of better mass transit service. Instead of 24-hour, a robust bus service around this area, he wants more rail lines. We need a 24-hour bus service here. We need better bus service. This mayor also wants to destroy open space. The Mountain Accord would end up, if it goes into implementation, blasting and heavy construction in the canyons for the next 10 years. That is not respect for open space. This mayor has also cut down hundreds of trees because they're not native to this area. Hundreds of years old trees, and he's cutting them down. This mayor is not an environmentalist. He increases air pollution because of the congestion he's causing with traffic engineering. I've actually heard administrators in his office say the more congestion, the more people will get out of their cars. But in the meantime, our air quality goes down. This mayor has also ignored the drug dealing for the last 7 years downtown, to the point where National Geographic says we have the biggest open-air drug trade market in the country. This administration needs to change. We need more police. We need a better mayor, bottom line. We need a new mayor.
Thank you.
Please vote.
Mayor Becker, I'll give you a couple of minutes to respond to some of the things that have been said here. I'm particularly interested, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The Mountain Accord keeps coming up, and a train and a tunnel being built through the mountain. If you could address that, please, and also Jackie's comments about the LGBT legislation was interesting to me, and touch upon those two things, if you will, and where else you would care to go.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, Mountain Accord was spurred by me and many others in the community when there was a proposal to take and connect ski resorts across our mountains that would have been an abomination for us. We have an incredible track record in Salt Lake City that I'm glad to say I've continued to protect our watersheds and to make the highest priority to protect our mountains from overdevelopment, and we've been successful given both the quality of our water and what's happened. Mountain Accord itself, just to be clear, and you can check all the records you want, it's very clear, you can go to the Mountain Accord website. There is no proposal for a tunnel, there is no proposal for a train. There is a proposal for improving transit in Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. and also for improving transit over to Park City through the Parleys area. There's also a proposal to take over 2,000 acres of private land that has been the subject of development proposals for decades, and to turn that over to the public. So it is an incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to achieve protections in these mountains like we have never seen before, that includes federal designations to place in permanence the federal and other land protections that are necessary. And invite you all really to go look, because the information is out there and is easily available. Around the LGBTQ issues. As Jackie knows, when we were in the legislature together, my voting, my record is consistent, forcefully and aggressively supporting the rights for the LGBTQ community, without exception. And I will say that it is one thing to talk about getting things done to protect the rights of folks. It's another thing to get it done, and to get it done by bringing the whole community together, by moving something forward to accomplish the ends we sought.
10 seconds.
And to make sure that we worked well enough with the legislature that when they tried to overturn what we had done, we were able to withstand it.
Thank you. This is a general question for each one of you, and we'll start with Mr. Chapman. You'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Salt Lake City, I think we all agree, should be a livable city, but livable for whom? Just the people who live on the east side? What about the people who live on the west side? What needs to be done to make Salt Lake City a better place for everyone to live in? 2 minutes.
That is an amazingly intelligent question, because the west side has always been the poor stepchild of Salt Lake City. The residents and taxpayers of the west side of Salt Lake City, I don't know if you know this, they have to pay lighting fees. They don't have lighting in most of their areas. There are no overhead lights on the street lights, nothing. And they're paying a lighting fee. That's how bad it is. The west side of this city has to take care of all of the area west of I-15 at night with one cop, one police officer for the whole west side. That's an insult. That's what the west side has been complaining about. But this administration keeps ignoring that. So we don't have enough police. We don't have enough respect for the citizens. We don't have enough respect for North Temple, because effectively, because of the administration's poor track record on drug and trying to take care of the homeless and give them a place to stay that's inviting, North Temple now takes care of all that. They have drug, they have homeless. This is the gateway to our city, and it gets no respect. This administration doesn't care about the west side. It hasn't shown it cares about the west side for the last 7 years, and we just need a new and better mayor that respects everybody, east and west side.
All right, George, thank you very much. Same question to you, Mr. Robinson. How do we make the city a livable place for everyone?
Well, there's a number of items that we can certainly look for that, but I would actually go back to the canyon issues. As we talk to people that have moved here, so many of them are here because they love the mountains, they love the hiking, they love the skiing, they love the dispersed recreation. I really take exception to the mayor when he said there's no plans for a train, when he, as the executive member representing the Mountain Accord, stood before us at the library and said, we are looking at building a 2-mile tunnel through the mountain connecting Little Cottonwood and Big Cottonwood. He then went on to say, many of you do not understand, but our public utilities director is from a mining family. Therefore, he knows how to build a 2-mile tunnel through the mountain to preserve the watershed. And also, many of you do not understand that these tunnels are used to store water in them, and so they actually benefit. So I'm sitting there in the audience thinking, are we creating a Disneyland ride where we store water in these tunnels, and then as the train comes through, we push a button and the water leaves and the train goes through? And the tunnel would be the biggest environmental fiasco that is in those canyons. We also have him promoting very intense development up there. This mayor has had at his discretion over $10 million for him to preserve and protect open space, of which this mayor has spent over $5 million the last 4 or 5 years in litigation. Total, I think we are looking at between 10 and 15 acres of land conserved with $10 million. The fact that he represents himself as an environmentalist, if I were a backcountry skier or an environmentalist or a hiker, I would feel like I had been let off the cliff. So I take exception to his arguments, and I believe that those mountains and open space need to be preserved for the quality of life for people here in this valley.
Mr. Garrett, let me just refocus the question. A livable city for everyone.
Thanks, Bill. It's a really important question. The mayor can't affect local wage markets. Rocky Anderson tried to raise the minimum wage. He tried to get a living wage for all city workers and all city contractors, and he got beaten down by the state legislature. I think we all remember that about 10 years ago. And so the wage issue is largely out of the hands of the mayor, and I'm not going to pretend that it is. But what a mayor can do is act on affordability, and specifically affordability of housing and affordability of transportation. So when we talk about housing, a lot of people right now are getting priced out of the city. Our new apartment buildings, and I represent on the city council, District 4, at the downtown area, and our new apartment buildings, if anyone's been looking for an apartment lately, you get sticker shock. It is significant. And so making sure that we have affordable housing in every neighborhood, and affordable housing doesn't mean cheap or rundown housing. Affordable housing means young people who are underemployed, or workers who are in the service industry, or old folks who have moved out of their homes and want to downsize can afford to live in the city. Right now, we are on a fast train to unaffordability and gentrification that is out of control in this city. And for a lot of people, that's a sign of success. And I'll point to the mayor and say, that's a sign of success for him. It's a sign of success for the redevelopment agency to have rising property values consistently. But I know who pays for that. It's people who need affordable rents. They pay for that. The other side of affordability in my equation is transportation. Having a car is really expensive. It's not just the gas, it's the insurance, it's the payments, etc. Good quality public transportation is something that will lower transportation costs for everybody in the city. And I'm not talking about competing with UTA, I'm talking about a Salt Lake City system that fills in the gaps of UTA. This has been done in other cities. Boulder, Colorado is my example. We can have a city transportation system that links up to UTA and that rises all boats.
All right.
Jackie?
Thank you. Every decision we make needs to come from a place of sustainability. So we have a lot of new buildings going in that are apartment complexes. However, these buildings are not green. So even though we're painting a lot of bike lanes everywhere, all of that progress is being offset by the construction of buildings that are not green. We are not gaining any ground. In fact, if you look at our pollution levels since the mayor took office, it's essentially a steady line with no real gains in clearing our air. The other sustainability piece that we're not doing is developing housing for young families, and housing that they can buy. So we're building a lot of apartments for renting. Most of those are 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom. We are not constructing any sort of condo-like situation so that I, as a young employee in Salt Lake City, and my wife want to buy a condo. We're not able to do that unless we happen to get lucky with something that was built a much longer time ago. So sustainability and keeping our population in Salt Lake so we don't have commuters means we have to create all the housing opportunities that are attractive to the people who work here. The same holds true for our schools, our parks. You know, why we haven't developed Pioneer Park in a way that it is used by children throughout the day through programs. You know, everywhere in this county, we have multi-use fields in our parks, and the kids are using them on a regular basis. We are not keeping up with making sure we even have enough education opportunities for the young families that are moving here. So all of our decisions need to be about a long-term plan that is sustainable, and we just are not doing that.
Mayor Becker, what do you need to do you think? how do we, let me just reframe the question one more time. There are
Appreciate
people
that.
on the east side, there are people on the west side. Sometimes we have this perception that there's a different quality of lifestyle in Salt Lake City. What do we need to do to make Salt Lake City livable for all people?
Well, when I came in my second term of office, it was around the livability agenda, and fairness is a key component in that. Let me just spend 5 seconds again on Mountain Accord and say, the information you've heard is wrong. Go to Mountain Accord. If you think Save Our Canyons, Wasatch Backcountry Alliance, and for that matter, Salt Lake City, would not place as its highest priority protecting these mountains and providing for everyone, you can check for yourself. So livability and fairness, it's obviously a huge key for this city. And the west side, east side split has been going on for a long time. Since I've been in office, what we find is actually the east side residents now complain we're investing too much in the west side. And I say, it's about time. We've made our largest investments around roads with the complete rebuilding of North Temple, with light rail going out to the airport along North Temple, completely rebuilding the street to provide for everyone. And we're seeing major investment around housing and other kinds of development around North Temple as a result. The Jordan River Parkway is now complete with a connection to Davis County and the Legacy Parkway system. We've got the regional sports complex on the west side with 16 new soccer fields coming into being this year. And we continue, I think, to focus our attention, as you see under the proposals that are being considered by the City Council for Parks and Recreation, where the vast majority of the improvements around parks, recreation, and open space exist along the west side, and particularly along the Jordan River. So it's absolutely necessary. The other pieces of this that are so important are to make sure, as people said, have housing. The 5,000 doors in 5 years effort is focused completely on affordable housing and on filling those gaps between what people can afford and this disparity that's increasingly occurring between incomes and housing. And the other piece is education. The Capital City Education Program is really paving the way to bridge that achievement gap, which should never exist in our community.
All right, here's the third question, and then we're going to get to questions from you. And I don't know about you, but a lot of questions are arising in my mind for all of these people. So get your questions ready. We'll ask you to come up to the microphone and ask them. Here's the final question. Each one of you will have 2 minutes to answer. What is the biggest problem facing Salt Lake City right now, and how would you, as the new mayor, fix it? You've just been elected mayor. What's the first thing you're going to do to fix what you perceive is the biggest problem we have right now? Let's start in the middle with Luke Garrett.
Thank you. I'm going to bring up air quality again, and affordability as well. Air quality affects everybody. It affects children, it affects elderly, it affects families, and we haven't done enough about it. Realistically, we're here in a corner of the valley, and what Salt Lake City does proper, it's not going to change the entire valley or the entire airshed. So there are two sides of this. We need to demonstrate for other cities how to do it. I have a plan to put solar on every roof in 10 years. This will be a demonstration for other cities about how they can reach energy independence. When we do that, and we're uploading all that power to the grid, and hopefully we're storing it in cool Tesla batteries as well, so that we don't have to deal with Rocky Mountain Power, we'll show other cities how to do it. We also need a coalition, a new political coalition, to get regulatory changes on Capitol Hill. Absolutely necessary. Right now, we do not, as cities and towns, have the right kind of lobbying and advocacy structure that we need. A coalition of clean air cities will pressure Rocky Mountain Power, the Public Service Commission, and the legislature to make sure that we rein in industrial polluters, as well as get changes for businesses and residents so that we can have a lot more clean power in the city. Affordability is absolutely essential as well, because like I said, if we allow gentrification to march on, we're not going to have any local businesses left. Look what's happening in Sugar House. We lost an entire commercial neighborhood there of local businesses, and local businesses were there in the former Sugar Hole because the rents were low. What has replaced them in Sugar House? National chains. You go to a lot of cities, downtowns in this country, and what do you see? You see Panera, you see 7-Eleven, you see national chain after national chain. And if we don't get serious in Salt Lake City about affordability for residential rents as well as commercial rents, we will become like every other place, and we don't want that.
Mr. Robinson, you're the new mayor. First thing in office, you see the biggest problem facing Salt Lake City. What is it? What do you do to fix it?
Homelessness and drug use. I believe that this problem is something that everybody that comes to this city, that lives in this city, that's downtown, sees on a day-to-day basis. I do not believe that it is acceptable. I believe that there have been a number of programs, primarily initiated on the state level, that have been very successful. Some participation with the city, and some of those programs should be absolutely continued. But what we are looking at now is the homeless population, and the drug use has certainly intensified. And there has been talk of moving it away over on the west side, some of these other areas to please. If they're out of sight, they're out of mind. I don't believe that is the solution. We know where these people are. We need to understand them on an individual basis. Many of these people have post-traumatic stress syndrome from being a veteran. Well, there's some veteran housing available, but they're obviously falling through the cracks. There are a number of people that are on meth and heroin. Yes, there are now police initiated yesterday saying we're going to start cleaning up some of the drug trade. But what are we doing for those individuals that will now be going through withdrawals? Do we have a safety net in place for them to get treatment on a day-to-day basis, to take that away from them? We are also seeing first generation, second generation, and sometimes third generation, where these kids have been born and raised in drug families. Humans are creatures of habit. What habits do they have that put them to where they can be employed? They can get up every morning, they can have clean clothes, they can have a haircut.
10 seconds.
We need to do better. We need to break it down to an individual basis, and we need to provide a safety net, training, re-education, and such.
Mayor Biskupski, first day in office, big problem facing
Yes.
Salt Lake City. What do you do to fix it?
Well, we have multiple issues that are really regional. The air quality, the homelessness, even our economic development or lack thereof. And I'll talk about all three of those. A strong collaborative leader would be reaching out to the state, reaching out to the Governor's Office of Economic Development to work collaboratively to bring in those IT companies that all ended up in Utah County, to ensure that we are providing all the incentive opportunities that they were afforded in another county, and making sure we get our fair share of real green economic development opportunities with great paying jobs and creating a sustainable economy. We have a lot of work to do on our economy here. We are not keeping up with the cost of running this city. We have almost $500 million in unfunded infrastructure needs that are being ignored. And as we are maneuvering through our bond process, we have a very clever mayor who reached out to a retiring bond that was on the Salt Palace and maneuvered our bond payment over to start paying for the big theater that's coming. But we didn't have any vote in that. We had no say, and we could have had a little input and decided for ourselves, really, if we're going to extend that bond, what would we want that money to go toward? And I think that would have been very helpful to our community in the long term. Our air quality problem is regional. You know, we have been doing little things here
10
and there.
seconds.
But we have to create a regional solution and bring in the powers in this community who have the will to affect change. And the change is coming.
Mayor Becker, they've afforded you a third term. You have problems facing you. What are the biggest ones, and what are you going to do at the beginning of your third term to fix them?
Well, Salt Lake City is fortunate to have incredible momentum to build on going into the next 4 years. By any measure that is given around prosperity and quality of life, we are consistently ranked around the country in the top 10 in the country. our challenges are around, I think, the topic, Bill, that you brought up and we've discussed earlier. It's really around livability, quality of life, and fairness. And when we've talked about fairness quite a bit, so I won't touch on that now, other than to say we've got the foundation, we've made progress, we have the tools in place to be successful. In sustainability, I think, as was referred to a little bit earlier, and air quality and reducing our carbon footprint, those are both local, regional, national, and global issues before us. And we need to lead the way. It is not by accident that Salt Lake City was identified and given the Climate Action Award of all cities in the country. It's not by accident that among the 15 cities as climate champion cities in the country, Salt Lake City was selected. But what we need to do now is take it to the whole next level. Salt Lake City represents 1/10 of the population of our airshed. We represent even a smaller geographic area. But as we convert all of our fuels for our fleets in Salt Lake City and our buildings with improvements, and work with the private sector through Project Skyline, reducing with our larger commercial buildings their energy emissions, through our nationally renowned solar lending program for residential solar, that is, in my mind, just the start. We need to go so much further. And then I'll say around quality of life. The prosperity and the growth we're experiencing, which is unprecedented for more than 50 years in this city,
10 seconds.
means that we need to make sure we protect this incredible quality we have of neighborhoods and quality of life for everybody in our city.
And Mr. Chapman, you get the last word on this. You've been elected mayor of Salt Lake City. The biggest problem, and what do you do, the first thing to attack it?
The biggest problem, I think, is not to listen to someone that says, I have only one problem. I think we have a lot of problems, and I'm going to focus on a lot of them. I agree completely with Dave, and I agree mostly with Jackie. I think we need to focus on homeless. We need to focus on drug use. I have a problem with the fame that Salt Lake City has gained as the biggest open drug trade market in the country. That's not something I want to be famous for. We need more police. I want to sell some of the surplus property that Salt Lake City is letting go vacant for years and use it to pay overtime for police to stop the drug trade. The drug trade needs to stop. We need more police, visible police, to discourage crime in the outlying areas. We need more police just to patrol and be there, to walk the neighborhoods. I want more police, but I also want to work on better air quality. Our lights, our traffic engineering and light system and bike lanes that don't really work and encourage congestion, that's wrong. That makes our air quality worse. So I also want to work on implementing and installing traffic lights, the new traffic lights they have, that actually reduce pollution because they detect cars. They make a real-time analysis of what it'll take to decrease air pollution. I want to install those. I need to go back to the Mountain Accord because the Mountain Accord did have, and I would stop this as mayor, the Mountain Accord did have the tunnel. It's going through the Wasatch Front Regional Council. I know it's there. I know the rail lines are there. I want to get rid of the rail lines. I don't think we need any more rail lines. I need better bus service. We need a robust bus system to encourage people to get out of their cars. 3 new rail lines will not get people out of their cars.
10 seconds.
But a 24-hour bus service will get people out of their cars, reduce congestion, reduce air pollution, and I think we need a new and better mayor. That's the quickest way to improve things in the city.
Well, there you go. Those are the questions that I had, and I hope you all have questions. I need you to come up to the microphone to ask them, please. I want you to be respectful with your questions. You can ask questions of individual candidates. Yeah, please come on, just walk around the back. There's probably the best way to do it. And come on and get in line if you would. Be respectful. You can ask questions of individual candidates, or you can ask questions of the entire group. If you ask a question of an individual candidate, let's see, we will give them, I think it was 90 seconds we said to respond. If everybody is responding to the question, we'll give them 30 seconds to respond. and we'll use up the rest of our time. And I want to find out the truth about this damn tunnel, don't you?
Yeah, let's get it out
We
there.
got to find out whether it's there or not. What's your name, ma'am, and what's your question?
My name is Charlotte Mates, and my question, first of all, I want to thank all of the candidates for running for mayor. I think it's an incredibly difficult position for all of you to be in, and I just applaud each and every one of you for being willing to be public servants for our community. Billboards. Question is, the billboard should say, "What do you need?" And this, in my opinion, is for every single person to answer this question. How can you help our city, and how can you help yourself? This is a question that was posed by a gentleman who is very much an advocate and wants to know. He's 92 years old. He was a doctor, Dr. John Shannon. He wants to know what we can do to increase the self-esteem of the homeless. So I'd like to hear that response, and I have a one-word response following each.
So
of
you
your-
want each person to answer what can be done to increase
How can
the
you
self-esteem.
How can you help our city to increase the
self-esteem
self-esteem
of the homeless.
every single person?
Let's start with
Not only the homeless, every person.
all right, George, go ahead. 30 seconds.
Is
On
that
billboards?
using a billboard?
Or I don't think billboard. Just how can you help?
Thank you.
How can you help? Sorry.
Billboards is a sideline. Never mind that.
Okay.
That's just the question I want to put on a billboard.
Okay, I got you. How can you help
Put it on
increase
a
the self-esteem of people in Salt Lake?
Well, going back to what Dave said, let's work together to get more focus on a problem that's been festering for 7 years without any attention from this administration. With the new administration, I'm convinced each of the opponents of this administration would put a lot more focus on trying to get the people that are down there to have better self-esteem. Dave had a great idea of getting some real commercial ovens in there, because right now the classes for cooking are done on hot plates. How dumb is that? That doesn't encourage self-esteem.
That's time. Go ahead, Mr. Robinson. Self-esteem, how do you help people with that?
I think this is a great question because as a gay man, you hear we need to legislate, we need to legislate, we need to legislate equality, which there's been some tremendous growth in that. But I believe that self-worth and self-esteem really comes from within. And as a community, I think that some of these events are very much needed. For instance, when the mayor was talking about canceling fireworks, no, that's a community event. Thousands of people come together. You get to mix and mingle and meet people that you never would have.
Time. Luke?
I'm gonna focus on the homeless. I've represented the Rio Grande neighborhood for 8 years now, and I've been a keen observer of what's been going on. People need work for self-esteem. I'm a big supporter of a room and a job programs. One of the jobs of government sometimes is creating jobs, and we're doing that at a little bit in the Rio Grande neighborhood with Valley Services, who are an offshoot of Valley Mental Health, who are a nonprofit, who offer employment to people who have a hard time holding an 8-to-5 job. A lot of people who have mental health issues and substance abuse issues can't hold down a job, yet they need work for self-esteem.
You know, I'm going to have to extend this past 30 seconds. It's not really quite enough time, is it? But we'll continue with the 30 seconds for this round, and then we'll go to a minute, probably.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jackie.
People need to be heard. They need to be a part of a solution. And especially for the homeless population, we want to make sure that when we are assessing the needs of the homeless, that we are actually talking with those individuals and getting the input. People want to be heard. They want to know that their opinion matters. And as a mayor, I think that is critical for everyone in this community to know that they'll have a voice that will be heard under my leadership.
Well, that was 30 seconds. Mayor Becker.
Well, self-esteem for all of us comes from feeling secure and stable and having equal opportunity. And when it comes to our homeless population, where more than 90% of our homeless have severe mental illness, many of them are addicted, we need to provide stability, and that comes from starting with housing, which is the Housing First policy, which started before I came into office. And it then goes to providing the support systems and then it goes to providing them transitional housing for those who are in a transitional circumstance, and helping the kids stay in school.
You had a final word you wanted to say on that quickly?
Vote.
Yes, what's your name? Get up really close to the microphone if you would, please.
I'm Nathan McDonald. So my question concerns the drug and homelessness that's been brought up a lot. It's quite a common misconception that most of the homeless are drug addicts. This has been shown in national statistics that the common drug user is a middle-aged male. Homelessness is caused from lack of jobs, and drug use is not. And homelessness is not caused by drug use.
Your question.
So my question is, what is your plan to combat drug use, and what is your plan for homelessness, as they are separate issues?
For each one of you, we'll start with Mayor Becker, and we'll give you a minute.
Okay, great, thank you. So I appreciate that you have distinguished between homelessness and drug use and our problems around drugs, because they are separate issues. Our homeless friends are not criminals. They are folks who faced misfortune for a variety of reasons, and they need support and help to be able to find stability and security, as I was mentioning, and opportunity. Our drug dealing population that is centered in Salt Lake City serves this whole region, in fact, even outside of the state. And we have to tackle that drug dealing with increased law enforcement, and we're bringing additional police forces in again this year. But it also comes to dealing with addiction. So as we arrest people that are dealing, and as we arrest people who are buying, we need to divert people to address their addiction issues. And that is that's the area that the approach that we have set up and that we are pursuing. And ultimately, that's how we're going to be successful.
Jackie?
So we will help the homeless population by breaking up the masses. You know, our families need to be in a separate housing unit from the individual single men, and the women need to be in their own housing units as well. That needs to happen for sure, and I think that in and of itself is a great first step to helping. Then there's an assessment process. What are their needs to help them get back on their feet and become independent again? The drug trafficking issue is not just about arresting somebody who's selling and somebody who's buying. It is finding out who is behind the drugs that are being brought in. Who is bringing those here so the seller can provide those? And we need to separate that population out from the homeless. They are being used to traffic drugs. It is unfortunate, and that needs to be cleaned up as well so we can help the homeless in a whole nother fashion.
Councilman Garrett.
So homeless folks here, so many living on the street, there are a couple of pieces that are missing right now, or are at a level that is not where it should be. First of all, I hear from service providers that outreach, compassionate outreach, not police in blue uniform outreach, but social worker outreach, is really needed to get people thinking about transitioning their lives. The supportive services that are then needed are way more than we're offering now. But we know kind of what works. Housing First works, but permanent supportive housing works better. And so the leadership issue here, I must touch on. We need new leadership in order to increase the amount of resources we have, because right now we rely on federal resources that get passed through the state, that come to the county. It's not enough. We have a huge private sector here in Salt Lake City that could and would be stepping up if we had a good plan.
5 seconds.
Secondly, we need to stop putting people in jail for nonviolent drug offenses, and
Time.
decriminalization of soft drugs is part of my program.
Mr. Robinson.
I'm not sure your number on the average age of the drug user. I believe that what we see out on the street right now is an alarming number of young men and young women that are in their early 20s, mid-20s, late teens, for whatever reason that they are on, whether it's heroin, meth, spice. I believe that as we look at what their needs are, of course, we have the drug court. Judge Skanke does a phenomenal job with that. But to expect some of these people to go through that and to P-test, 2-3 times a week at $15 a time, they then have to go get a job. Well, they go up against other people that have gone to school and things, but they've been a drug user for all these years.
10
Many of
seconds.
them have criminal records. So it is so important for us to look at methadone treatment, Suboxone, those types of things, and to actually give them
Time.
training and one-on-one treatment.
And George Chapman.
I'm going to agree with Dave because Dave does spend a lot of time. He cares about people and he cares about the homeless issue. I do too. And I think we need a new mayor to focus on solving it, not waiting for 7 years. I do have a problem with something the mayor said, saying that he's not targeting the homeless, and I disagree because yesterday I saw a police officer that was ordered to ticket the homeless for quality of life issues like jaywalking and public urination. And I know of cases where one homeless person has hundreds of tickets. That's a waste. We're supposed to be targeting the drug dealers. I've never, ever, ever complained and asked for police to target homeless. But it's all of a sudden happening as of yesterday. That's wrong. I've always said we need to target drug dealers.
10 seconds.
And that's the issue. We need to provide services. We need to provide social workers all the way through. Dave's right. I agree with him.
Time. Thank you. Next question. Who do we have up next? Dr. White. Dr. Paul White, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good.
I would like to, this is a general question for all the candidates. Going back to something that Bill had brought up before with thinking of the perceptions of the east and the west sides of the city. What would you do as mayor to try to combat those perceptions and bring us together as a one city?
Let's start with Jackie Biskupski.
Okay. First of all, we have to start treating the west side of our city the same as we do the east side. If you've noticed, all of the economic development going on is over in this side of the freeway. We have built a TRAX line through the west side of the city, but there is no park and ride, as if though nobody over there would ever park a car to get on the TRAX lane. But if you go north and south, there's park and rides all the way through it. The other thing that has happened over there, there is a fee that is assessed to the businesses that are along North Temple for the luxury of having a TRAX line. That has been a real deterrent to get businesses to want to open up over there. So we need to create a fair playing field along that TRAX line, and we need to
10
focus
seconds.
on the economy over there and building a strong economy that will sustain that community.
Mayor Becker.
So there has been historically, there's no question in my mind, a disparity between east and west side investment. And I'll say that has been reversed during my time in office. And it is, as I said before, it's always a bit almost entertaining for me when I hear the east side representatives on our council complain about so much investment on the west side. But we've got a lot to overcome there. So I mentioned a lot of things that we are doing, and we've been making investments, and we need to continue making even more investments, I believe, on the west side. A big part of what we need to do is the stigma that's attached. As someone who walks door to door, I can tell you my favorite place to walk door to door is in west side neighborhoods. People are friendlier, they're more open, there's incredible diversity, there's a warmth among the population on the west side, and the stigma is undeserved. I have noted before, to some chagrin of folks who live in Sugar House, that there is more crime, property crime in Sugar House than there is in the west side neighborhoods. Those need to change. The stigma needs to change.
George Chapman.
Boy, you just set me off, Mayor. Okay, the reason there aren't very much crime statistics in West Side, they stopped calling the police. They got so frustrated with the lack of police response, they stopped calling. I know that there's not enough police in Sugar House because 50% of the homes around Fairmont Park are broken into. The answer to your question, Dr. White, is I'd go to all the community councils. I'd set up some more on the west side. There are only two, really, south of North Temple, and Fair Park, Rose Park also. But I'd go to all the community councils. I like going to the community councils. I want to work for the citizens of Salt Lake City. That's one of the quickest ways to show the east side and the west side that we're all together. The mayor should be going to all the community councils. We're all in this
10
together.
seconds.
And I'd also increase the police response because they really do feel on the west side that they're not being respected.
Time. Mr. Robinson?
I believe that the west side and the east side are actually different. And I think that much like West Capitol is different than Sugar House, they each have their own sense of character. I believe that the west side has been ignored for a number of years. And it's very concerning when you have a mayor that, as a planner, has not had, until recently, an up-to-date master plan for that side. He then comes out and says, I will tell you what's best for your open space and how we're going to do some of these things. I believe that the west side has tremendous potential as far as trails, as far as parks, as far as neighborhoods, as far as livability. But as a builder, when we have gone in there into those areas, to have a master plan that is not up to date, to have community neighbors and things that do not understand some of the smart planning characteristics and
10
principles
seconds.
is very, very difficult. If I were the west side, I would absolutely feel like the awful stepchild. And it's a shame.
And Luke Garrett.
I teach at the university, but I'm a community-oriented professor. Some of my classes have been service learning classes, and we partnered with community organizations on the west side. The Rose Park Community Festival, for example, was helped start by a group of my students in the community council there. And I know the power and the potential of the west side. The first thing I would say is that we need connections, physical connections. Why at 3rd North and 8th and 9th South, and until the 13th South Bridge was fixed, do we not have connections in the city? The trains are a real problem, and we need bridges and we need tunnels. Secondly, we've got to talk about education on the west side. We have a nearly 40% Latino dropout rate in high school. What does that say to me? It says that our institutions are not making the
10
moves
seconds.
that they need to connect with parents and with children. We're getting way too many kids involved in the criminal justice system early. We need to make sure that institutions work for people.
Time. Thank you. We have limited time left. Go ahead. Come on up if you have a question. We're going to give you 30 seconds on this one. Go ahead.
Okay,
Question?
I understand. Yeah, there's only about 5 minutes left. I actually have a two-part question, but hopefully the second part is a yes or no. My first question is, I came here unsure about every last one of you. Mayor Becker, I voted for you multiple times. Ms. Biskupski, Mrs. Biskupski, I voted for you as well. I want to hear one defining thing about your mayoralship that will make me vote for you. And second question is, every one of you has made some grandiose claims, and are you willing to post those in some public forum so that we can see and verify that information? And again, the second question is a yes or no, and the first question I'll take off.
What's the first question again?
What's the defining role of your candidacy?
30 seconds, Mr. Chapman.
Oh, come on. One defining thing. Well, I'm a veteran. I want to work for you. And I think I'd like to say that I want to work for you. I want you to be my boss. You should be my boss. And yes, I will post that information. The Regional Transportation Plan, number 50 on the line item list, has a Mountain Accord Tunnel from Alta to Summit County. So I will post the other stuff that shows that the 3 new rail lines downtown are on that list. And that shows that that's where our tax dollars are going to go.
George, you said, oh, come on, and you did very well. That was very good. Mr. Robinson.
I believe that it's really important for a mayor and for a leader to be able to create a vision for a community and to bring a community together. I absolutely believe in equality, and not just equality for the gay, lesbian community, but equality for all people, regardless of their economic status, regardless of their social ability, things like that. I believe that as a community, we work together and in a very collaborative manner. As far as posting facts on the internet,
Time.
Yes or no?
say yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but
All
I
right.
have a really interesting story with that, but we might not have time.
Mr. Garrett, ask him afterwards.
The slogan of my campaign is level the field, and to me that means a couple of different things. First of all, in the economic realm, small business needs a real chance. Small business is the backbone of our economy. Their revenue circulates at a rate 4 times that of national chains. We've got to make sure that local business is at the center of our economic development policy. Secondly, Kids' education. We need to make sure that opportunity exists for kids. We've got to do much better in public education. And thirdly, level the field means that citizens get access to City Hall, and we re-democratize Salt Lake City.
We absolutely need a strong leader who knows how to collaborate. And our bigger issues with air quality, the homeless, and the drug trafficking are all regional. And a strong collaborative leader like myself, who's had 13 years of experience on Capitol Hill and 8 years of experience working in the Sheriff's Administration, I can assure you that I will bring the leaders and the community people together to solve those issues, and we will have real impact. And yes.
Time. And Mayor Becker.
I'll start with the yes, and you can find it on both the Salt Lake City website with our livability agenda, where we have metrics around 85 items we're pursuing, and also on our campaign website for what we're doing and planning to go forward. I'll just mention 3 major themes we need to pursue. One is sustainability, to move ourselves into the energy future that is carbon neutral and that is air pollution better. As an environmental planner who did his projects around Clean Air Act and my focus on Clean Air Act, I'm certainly that person. Anyway, there's more. You're welcome to go to our website. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Luke Garrett, Jackie Biskupski, Ralph Becker, George Chapman, and Dave Robinson, thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank our technical staff, Dave Peterson, Mike Chidsey, Ty Cummins, Christian Madsen, 50 West staff, Mike Waldvogel, John Ribera, and everyone here at the 50 West Club and Cafe. The show is produced for Broadway Media by Dylan Allred and Corey O'Brien. Also thanks to Dan Baumus and the Utah Foundation. Remember, like What Do You Think Utah on Facebook. Follow us at Think Utah on Twitter. Our website is thinkutah.org. I'm Bill Allred. We'll see you next month, August 29th. We're going to be talking about sexual assault on college campuses. That's next month, August 29th. Thanks for being here. Good night, everybody.